where are you at on the MVP race? As Asia, everything that she's done in this 11-game win streak, is that kind of put her as a front runner, or are you still kind of looking at Nafisa Collier's full body of work, despite the fact that she, has missed the last 7 games? And interesting enough, like, this whole thing flipped the day that the Aces got just destroyed by the Lynx in a 53-point game blowout. Nafisa Collier gets hurt that game, and the Aces basically, in this combination of this humiliating loss, but this ability to still stick together in the locker room, have turned that moment into an 11-game win streak.
Yeah. So I would say, as far as the MVP race goes, like, I've been describing it as stress. I call it stress because there's so much good basketball happening. And I would say that at this point, I don't necessarily know that there's a definitive person who is firmly has a hold on the MVP race. Definitely felt like it was Fee and then everyone else for quite a while. But then Alyssa Thomas inserted herself into the conversation right before All-Star, I would think. And Asia Wilson, I don't think was as quote unquote loud about it as she is now right before All-Star, but she was also playing well before All-Star. But you're right. This 53-point loss that spurred this 11-game win streak for the Aces has highlighted, I think, what we often like to describe, what the kids describe as greatness from Asia Wilson, right? You have multiple 30-point games, so many different players contributing finally. And I think it's less about Asia Wilson has inserted herself into the chat, in my opinion, and more so she is there. This is definitely, it's Fee, Asia Wilson, and then I would probably say Alicia Gray out of Atlanta. And then I could not tell you who it is for 5. Maybe if you wanted to look at Sabrina Ionescu, or if you wanted to look at Kelsey Mitchell for 5. But this is firmly a race where it felt, like you said, felt like Fee, and then now not so much. I think a lot of it is spurred by we often take Asia Wilson's greatness for granted. What she did last season, 1,000 points in the season, which, by the way, she could very well actually pull off again this season, which seems just absolutely bananas to even think about. But the tear that she's currently on, not just during the Aces 11-game streak, but just throughout the season on both sides of the basketball, is to be admired. And I think that we're so used to Asia doing these things that it just becomes very okay, that's just Asia Wilson, right? We don't stop to think, you had 30 and 16 the other day, what? That's where I kind of fall in that regard. So I don't know who's going to win MVP. And I feel like that's been a flip over the last month and change. And I think this is where it really pushes voters and pushes people in general who watch the WNBA to really take into consideration the entire depth of the season, right? Fee being out for close to 3 weeks, a month, somewhere in that range. 7 games is about what she missed. But it forced everyone to kind of turn their head on Alyssa Thomas, turn their head on Asia Wilson, make sure that you're considering everyone. So I think that's kind of what's very interesting about this MVP race. Whereas last year, it was Asia Wilson, a planet-sized gap, and everybody else. Yeah. And it was not even close from the very beginning. Just was never close. And that doesn't quite feel like that now. This is a good stress. It's a very good stress. If you're a voter like I am, it's what? How am I supposed to possibly pick from all these good elite hoopers? This is not even fair.
Yeah, you feel like you're inevitably snubbing somebody. That's just
somebody.
Right? And it's interesting too, because I think what you're talking about gets into the sort of meta conversation that we have around what it takes to actually be an MVP. And I think if you looked at Asia statistically for most of the season, there are some differences in what she's doing right now versus what she was doing throughout most of the course of the season, especially as it pertains to points per game. But I also think a lot of that is just a tactical outgrowth of the fact that, since I think a couple things happened. I think that there was a wholesale sort of defensive change for the Aces that we'll get into that was both, spiritual, emotional, and tactical, that I think is very interesting. The other thing that happened is Jewel Lloyd moves to the bench. They trade for Nalissa Smith, who comes in for Kia Stokes, and that really stabilizes their starting unit. You have a player like Kristen Ball who's playing a lot more minutes as well. And you also have, I think Jackie Young has been having an incredible season all season long, but there has been an increase in aggression from her. And some of the finishes that we're seeing are kind of looking like what you saw from her like 2 years ago when she was finishing like 80% at the rim, right? She's kind of back at that level. Like there was one, I think it was against Washington, I can't remember what game it was, where she just kind of like Luka'd her way to the rim and just decided to like hold her space, which you just never see for a player her size, and just bank in a shot for an and one. Like, and she's able to do things like that. She's just like she's one of the best athletes at the guard position. She's an incredible finisher. She's got a ton of heart, and she's just playing incredibly well. And you also have Chelsea Gray, who's looking absolutely vintage. And what that does is now all of these situations where A'ja Wilson was an auto triple and was having a career high in assists, all of a sudden the defense starts to have to really think about it again. And so now you have A'ja taking more shots. She's averaging 26 points a game in the last 11 games, like when they've had this 11-0 stretch. That's obviously leading the league. She's also just like shooting 41% from three as well. Like that was a kind of an improvement that we wanted to see throughout the course of the season, and it's really started to show itself. Like there was a point this season where the 3-pointer just hadn't really felt like it was like making that leap that we thought it might, and now that's there too, which just makes it that adds another sort of like puzzle piece to the scouting report as well. And she's just like, she always does this, but it's just a notch higher. She's rebounding the crap out of the ball, and for an Aces team that, kind of struggled on that end, in this stretch has led the league in offensive rebounding as well, which I think can have like a lot of tactical advantages against some of the teams that they might face in the playoffs. So there's these subtle shifts that have happened in a player who, frankly, is one of the most consistent players that we have seen. She doesn't miss games. It's very like last year, I think she missed like one game, right? And it was like the first game that she missed in 3 years. And then this year she missed 4 games out with a concussion. The Aces go 1-3 when she's not there. But when she's around, you pretty much know that she is good for, if you're not going to double her, she's good for like that 27, 28. I should say actually, if you're not going to triple her, right? And if you're going to kind of like try to make everybody else beat you, then it's going to be like that 21, and then maybe there's 5 assists. Like that is just what you can kind of come to expect from A'ja Wilson on a nightly basis. And it kind of also adds to this MVP conversation of what's most important, right? Like you look at that 1-3 versus the Lynx going 5-2 without Nafisa Collier. The Aces would fall off a cliff without A'ja Wilson. They just would. Like it just wouldn't, like, as much as, and I don't mean that to denigrate anybody else in that team. It's just the way that team is built around her. She's so important to everything that they do that she has to your point about the kids, rise to a level of greatness every single night for the Aces to be able to hit this level, right? Like you consistently see her putting out dominant performances that like are just borderline scary. I saw her play live for the first time, I think, I don't know, like it was like probably 4 weeks ago or something. Like the Aces were in LA, and she just like, Dearica Hamby was in hell. And there was just nothing you could do. And it looked scary. Like, it was just like, when she hits that level, there's just nothing you could do. She's so agile. She's so strong. She's kind of at that place as a veteran where she knows exactly what she wants to do against every single player. She has incredible touch. And, that three was hitting that night, right? And it was like, and then that, I guess that became a bit of an omen. Because I think like kind of since around there, like her 3-pointer has really, really been on. And it's very, very difficult to deal with. And she's available, she's consistent, and they really, really need her. So I think that's kind of and this isn't like, we can talk about the fee argument later, but I think that's kind of the crux of the A'ja argument.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you talk about it from an MVP perspective, because then you have to ask yourself, well, what do people value, right? What's important to people? And that's why this MVP conversation gets really polarizing. I think, to the point, there was a conversation I recently had with another media member about the value of an MVP, right? Like, again, this most valuable player concept, where people were looking at the Lynx and saying, well, the Lynx have been winning without Fee, right? And, then if you put Fee back on, what happens to this Lynx team? Well, they're still good without Fee, right? Like, I think a lot of teams, you would hope that they would be good without their best player, right? You hope that at some point they adjust. It's good coaching. The players are able to step up, right? But I think the difference, and what I noticed, is the Lynx with Fee are a completely different team. She is such a game changer for them. The spacing is different. The shot selection is different. The pace is different. Her ability to create for her teammates also, again, different. Their defense takes a ginormous leap with Fee there, right? And I would say the same thing for A'ja Wilson is Vegas could win games without A'ja, right? Like they might be ugly, they might be gritty, but they could realistically win games without A'ja. There's
Especially
enough
this
talent there to be
version
able
of
to do
them,
that.
right?
Yeah, right. Like they could realistically do that. But when you add A'ja Wilson to that roster, again, everything shifts. You realize that Vegas creates a lot through A'ja. And if she's not creating, she's dishing it out to her teammates. She's creating the steals for her teammates. She's getting those prompt rebounds, those sorts of things, steals, blocks, all those sorts of things that we hope MVP players do. So it really puts the onus on people to say, well, what's really important to you? What do you value? Like, I put it in the perspective of how bad does a team have to be for people to be like, okay, the MVP like matters, right? Or is if a team is too good, does that make it less of an MVP case, balance, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, and I hear people say, oh my gosh, no, I can't even value like, Nafisa Collier's MVP case because her team was good without her. Mm-hmm. So you want them to be bad to validate her case? Like, because I'm really confused. I'm very confused. And I'd say the same thing about A'ja Wilson as well, as like Asia's team not being that great, without her on the floor doesn't necessarily make her case in my mind greater or smaller. It just adds a different like sort of context for me.